I am María Santos-Sainz, full professor of journalism in the Institute of Journalism Bordeaux-Aquitaine at the University of Bordeaux in France. The title of the article is The Social Imaginaries of the Future Journalism in France. The article analyzes how differently the future journalists perceive the professional and social realities of journalism according to their gender and the socio-economic background of their families. The methods. This first stage of the research takes a synchronous and quantitative perspective based on a survey questionnaire applied to the students recently accepted to the four journalism school of the French public university system: the IPG of Tours, the Collège of Strasbourg, the AGC of Marseille, and the IJBA of Bordeaux. This stage of research has been carried out by members of the French Association CEGER, Journalism Research from Prestigious School. A total of 115 students answered the questionnaire, which was applied of the first class day at the journalism school in order to capture the first ideas. This second stage of the research adopted a diachronic and qualitative perspective based on the analysis of more than a dozen in-depth interviews applied to a representative sample of students with different social backgrounds. The interviews investigated response, family history, and its influence on their perception of the profession. The in-depth interviews were designed from an ethno-sociological perspective through the telling of life stories. 13 of the 36 students who integrate the first year's course of the master degree in journalism during 2011 academic year were selected. In order to simplify the sample selection, we classified the social professional occupation into 4 groups. 3 students representative of each group were selected. In order to get a deep understanding of the first group, which is representative of the IJBA but a minority in other schools of journalists, we carried out 4 interviews. The selection of the respondent aimed to include both genders equally and therefore included 7 women and 6 men. The second level of analysis is based on a series of in-depth interviews that trace the family and school history of all the students of the School of Journalism of Bordeaux with its representative of the different social groups. The study tries to answer multiple questions. How do students perceive the profession and role of journalism? What are the differences of this perception? What role do journalist students think future journalists should play? What relations should be established between future journalists and the political and economic power? How can journalists recover the trust of readers and the public? What are the dominant values, professional beliefs, and myths of reference of the new generation of journalists? The study is based on the hypothesis that, contrary to the dominant belief that journalism schools are what define the ideas of journalists, we are other sociological, economic, and cultural factors that play a decisive role. We consider that a student's family, media habits, cultural practice, and ideological heritage, as well as the imaginaries typical of today's young generation, are variables that must be taken into account. Conclusion. The imaginaries of the future journalists vary more according to their social origin than according to their gender. The interviewed female journalism students do not make reference to important female journalists, nor have female journalists to admire. They prefer to be reporters and they don't dream of reaching the highest position in the profession, which contrasts with the opinion of male respondents who do see themselves in this position. Most interviewed students highlighted that the role of the media is to inform and to disseminate information. The human dimension is crucial in a student's conception of what a journalist should be. Students perceive journalism as a way of life that will allow them to meet people, to talk about the everyday life of ordinary people, to produce news report, to conduct debates, to explain to people what is really going on. The figure of the street reporter, the foreign correspondent, and even the mythical war correspondent are more admired than the figure of the digital journalist located in four walls. They use social networks and the internet in their private sphere, but it's not as source of information. The quality press is a model of which they aspire to be part. It is clear that there is a gap between how students perceive the working condition of journalists and the actually unconsigned harder condition faced by journalists. Students' perception about the working condition are worrying because they can make their future employment more difficult. Students do not have heroes. As one of the interviewed students stated, "I don't practice idolatry." Although they don't have role models, the sample of journalist student has its own recipe for success, which is based on verification, honesty, independence, ethics, and the desire of renewed ties with the readers. This discourse was more common in the first and second group, which belonged to be most disadvantaged social classes. The journalist elite has lost its power of attraction. They are not a role model for journalist students. Elite journalists are hardly mentioned, and some are criticized due to their proximity to the political power. Journalism should not be a profession of a star. It should be not developed in an ivory tower. The students who belong to the least privileged social classes develop a discourse of social commitment to citizens because they are aware of their civic responsibility. This group of students wants to reveal cases of corruption, show realities that are unknown to the general public, and to do investigative journalism. These students condemn the collusion journalist practiced by the journalist elite. They don't support the current media model and believe that other types of journalism are possible. They want to practice straight journalism close to the people. They dream of the noble image of the profession. The figure of the committed journalist is the ideal for the students that come from humble backgrounds. This is the true pillar of the profession. The students belonging to disadvantaged social classes value the profession the most and have a culture of effort and selflessness and heritage from their families. The social elevator works because of the fight they put up to gain access to an intellectual profession. They consider journalists to be a useful and noble profession. They have a more romantic and social view of the profession. They want to be a real communication channel for the village people, the forgotten and the voiceless. We must not forget or despise the people. I want to show people that there is more than Paris. I come from the provincial France. We should talk about the many realities that are not addressed in the media. However, these students practice self-censorship by not working in recognized and prestigious media, unlike the students from more privileged social classes who do so because they have greater social capital and contacts in the profession of journalists thanks to their families. The research results allow us to corroborate that journalist students are not a homogeneous group. Their difference in terms of social backgrounds and remarkable and greatly influence their perception of the profession. Students from humble backgrounds have the richest imaginaries as well as a romantic and more demanding view of what journalism should be. Their social origin affects their vision of the world and the vision they associated to the profession. In a context marked by the current debate in France about how to increase social diversity in the profession of journalism, the social selection carried out by journalism school has been brought into question. Although some journalism schools belonging to public university aimed for greater social diversity in their student selection, as in the case of the Institute of Journalism of Bordeaux, it should be noted that there is a problem regarding the social homogeneity of journalists in France. Some studies have shown that more than most journalism students come from the middle and upper classes, the children of intellectual profession, which makes journalism an excessively endogenous profession. Despite the efforts made by the majority of journalism schools to open up their doors to other social sectors, it should be stressed that this should be one of the main missions of journalism schools belonging to public university. Their task is to increase the diversity of social backgrounds in a profession that is denigrated by the social reproduction of the elite. Thank you very much.